I was trying to prepare this sermon, this message, whatever, and I kept going after this one idea. And it was very simple, very, happy. And God kept bringing me back to something that's really been on my heart for a long time, which is the image of God. And so I apologize if this seems kind of broken a little bit, because I kept, as I was trying to research this and going through all the pieces, nothing was coming. And so I kept coming back to the image of God. And hello, there's some light. Talking about the image of God. And I don't know if a lot of this is something that a lot of people don't think about. When God created us in his image, what it really meant. And dude, it's everything. Like, it's literally everything what we are. It's who we are. It's so important for us to understand what the image of God is. And so we're going to start in Genesis. And we're going to end in Revelations. No, I'm just kidding. But in Genesis 1, 27 and 28. Says, so God, actually I think it's just 27, but so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. And God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heaven, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Okay, so we're made in the image of God, guys. And I think a lot of times because of sin, we're subjected to a reality. And you guys all know me, so I talk in weird quantum realms. So you're subjected to this three-dimensional reality that we call life, which is the body, this avatar that holds our soul. And that inhibits us from understanding what we really are. And so we are subject to what we can see, taste, touch, feel, and hear. And that is our reality. That's what we know. That's how we perceive everything that goes on in this world. And so we're limited in the spiritual realm. So that's why when we first came into realization of who God is, it was we didn't even fathom it, but it became, you start to realize that there's something beyond yourself. And it's very difficult sometimes because the Spirit comes and goes, like that, that feeling of the Spirit comes and goes. And so we have glimpses of what it's like to be on the other side, but we can never fully fathom it because we are subject to what we can see, taste, touch, feel, and hear. And so God's been talking to me a lot about image and just what does it mean to be in the image of God? Literally, Adam and Eve walked and talked with God in a dimensional realm where they could literally walk and talk with God, where he was tangible. It was, it was beyond anything we understand. And Satan hated that. We were made in the image of God. He wanted to be like God. His original sin was wanting to be like God. And then he couldn't be like that. And then God created us in his image. Just think of the slap in the face that was to Satan. Like, he couldn't be like God, and then God makes something in his image, and we took that position that he wanted. And so now Satan's out to get us. He's like, I want to destroy the image because I wanted that, and I was denied it. And so, we fast forward to one whole chapter, Genesis 2, and we see Satan is tempting. Actually, I think it might be 3. Let me check here. Yep, it's 3. So Satan comes to Adam and Eve, and he says, did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? This is, 3:2. And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. So the serpent says, you won't surely die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Well, that's kind of funny, because last I checked, they were made in the image of God, right? So they were already like God. And they walked and talked with God in the garden every day. So they already knew what it was to be good. So the only thing that he really offered them was the understanding of evil. He said, you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Well, they were already made like God, and they already knew good, so he offered them evil. But that's a fun fact to think about, because that's really what we're offered every day when we're posed this question. But what's really crazy, when you read between the lines, he says, God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God. So if you read between that, what he's implying to her is, you are not like God. He's implying you're not like God. He never lied to her. He just said, you will be like God. Well, she was already like him. So he implied and made her think, well, maybe I'm not like God. Maybe God's holding out on me. God doesn't want something for me. I need to go out and find out. I want to be more like God, so I need to eat of this fruit so I can be like God. Her intent, her desire was to be like God. But she believed a lie, which was, you are not like God. He got her to doubt the image of God, and that's what happens every day to us. Is we are forced an idea that we are not like God. I don't care what you say, who you are, or where you go, what your job is. You were made in the image of God. That's just who we are. It's undeniable. It is set in stone forever. You were made in the image of God, and there's nothing you can do about it. And we're responsible for that. And that's what our journey on this earth is we are responsible for the image of God and holding that dear. And that's what, I mean, I hate to even laugh, but Satan's so clever in what he presented. He never lies, and yet he gets her to doubt everything she knows. Guys, the world is freaking nuts. If you guys watch the news, it's crazy. I mean, there's stuff going on that we are so far. I mean, in 8 years, things have dramatically changed. I mean, we are not, we're so far from where we were. And I'm about to show you how far we are, because I'm crazy. I watch a lot of weird stuff. I mainly watch just a lot of news clips that help me think I understand the world. But it does help me to get a grasp of where a lot of people are. So go ahead and roll the first video clip, please. This is a little bit long, and it's going to be sad for you guys to watch it. But nope, wrong one. That one right there. Turn it up.
In the world we live in, we set up two distinct categories, man and woman, that everyone must choose between. But that doesn't actually reflect the full diversity of the human experience. Within the categories of man and woman, there is incredible diversity of gender expression. And some people, like me, don't really feel good in either category. Instead of choosing, we want to live in a world where gender and sexuality can be more fluid, more playful, and can exist outside of such explicit sorting between one category or the other.
It kind of feels like I'm making history a little bit.
In what could be a first at Santa Barbara High School, the students choose a transgender student as their prom queen.
Blue's bisexual classmate Sabrina Dabby was named King.
The world is moving forward. You might as well move with it.
The testimony continued. The youngest to speak was Victoria Johnson, who was accompanied by her mother, Davina.
I was a proud mother of a son and a daughter. And within the last year, I became a proud mother of a daughter and a daughter.
Then on the other hand, you had parents who talked about concerns over their children being forced to accept these changes as the new norm.
We are a nation of dog lovers. But meet the men who don't just want to own a dog. Come on, babe. They want to be one.
Everybody loves a puppy.
Good boy.
It isn't the seedy activity people think it is.
Secret Life of the Human.
And
you know, on the surface we thought, oh, maybe this is one or two people doing it behind closed doors. And actually, the more we did research on the subject matter, we found out that this was actually a very big community.
Chew toys to play with and see if I can do it for you. So you've got chew toys and tennis balls, and there's all sorts of bits and pieces that you can do as a pup. Probably about the sort of the point where I stop and fall out and come back human is for the toilet trip moments. The sort of, I'm still house trained in that sense, I suppose.
You know, and if a person feels that they are born in the wrong body, who are we to tell them that they are not? What we need to do as loving and caring and supportive citizens of this whole world is to provide an opportunity and a solution, and that starts at a really young age. And we have that opportunity and solution. That comes with our line, that comes with our clothing.
V-bombs. Many young women around the world have continually joined the ranks of the real Barbie army, often earning their stars with the help of extensive cosmetic surgery, breast implants and a ridiculously small waist. Keep watching to meet these 7 unbelievable girls who look like living dolls.
You look amazing.
And that's why I do this, because I think so too. I just can't believe that that's a 70-year-old man in the mirror. And that's why I do this. If I saw a 70-year-old man in the mirror, I'd quit this tomorrow.
What do you see when you look in the mirror?
A very exciting female. This just blows my hair back. That I can do this. That's me in there. That's one of the things I have to keep telling myself. That's not just a 7-year-old man, that's me inside that female. God.
It was organic explosion of love and, I don't know, just good human will towards creating change on this planet.
We're going to do a welcome to start, but just keep in mind that we're going to go around, and any vows that you want to make to the sea or to water, you know, you'll have a chance to speak your vows. In the power you have vested in us, we now pronounce you married to the sea. Congratulations, you can kiss the sea.
You can have 2 rings if you want.
A business owner in diapers promoting a new adult baby store in Mount Prospect.
You know, they're not having sex with their diapers on. They're having people feed them and act like a baby.
It's a business that many people find at best is tasteful, but that is legal.
Displaying a 5.5-foot rocking horse, a 7-foot crib, an oversized high chair, and an adult-sized playpen.
Things for people to come and play, take pictures.
It's hard for us to swallow in this community.
The village attorney says it has no legal basis to deny it.
I have no words for that story.
Now, I know you're probably wondering, why did we just show you that? Guys, it's because, like, this is disturbing crap. And it's the hardest part in this is my heart breaks when I see this. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I grew up in a family that was very dogmatic. We would have shook our heads, washed our hands of them, called them perverts, and been done. But, dude, we're living in a world that's so different. And they don't need judgment. They need help. They need love. That's what they're searching for. Every single one of them has bought a lie. And that lie is that they were not created proper. That they were not made important. That they are not special. And so they're looking for something to complete that. They're believing a lie just like Eve did. You will be like God. They believe they've been held out on by God. That God made them improper. Or maybe that God doesn't exist at all. And that they're not in the image of God. They're not who they created them to be. Satan has fed a lie, and this is everywhere. This is everywhere in our society. You can turn on the news tonight, and I guarantee there's going to be something about, gender, and, I was born in the wrong gender. It makes up 3%, less than 3%. Actually, I think the numbers are 0.3% of our whole nation has a feeling about this, our whole world, really. And yet it consumes our whole life. I mean, people are making decisions for 0.3% of the... Anyways, the point is we're buying a lie, which is that we were not special. People are turning themselves into dogs and goats because they feel like they can't even connect with humanity. I said in part of my speech, but guys, that's our job as Christians, is help them connect with who they are supposed to be. That's what we're here for, is to help them connect with who they are, which is the image of God. We are the image of God. We are the representation of the image of God. We are the mirror that they can look into to see the image of God. And most of the church is shaming them and putting them out. They don't need that. They need love. But that's a sidebar. We bought a lie that we're not made in the image of God. We've watched some disturbing things that show that these people need help. They need love. They're picking up on something that we aren't, by the way, or that the rest of the world isn't, is that something's missing. Something's missing, and they're trying to find out what that piece is, enough to where a guy reverts back to being a baby and wanting people to feed him. And I mean, who knows if it may be sexual, it may not. But somewhere down the line, somebody missed the mark and taught this guy that he is not complete. And he feels not complete. And I'll tell you, guys, the more that we have tried to divorce ourselves from the image of God in our society, because that's what's happening. We put prayer out of schools in the 60s. We started embracing all these other things. And I'm not shaming that. What I'm saying is the more that we divorce ourselves from God, the more we forget who the image of God is until everything becomes oblivious. Now we don't know what we are. Well, I don't know. I may be woman. I don't even feel like either or. Because we don't know what the image of God looks like, and we are the image of God. The point is, Satan knows what he's doing when he presents this idea that we are not, that God's holding out on us. There's more to this humanity. It's experiential. It's about what we can have today. But guys, it's so important that we understand we're not of this world, but we're here. And while we're here, we have to present the fact that, yes, something is missing. It is Christ, the image of God, who you are, and he has something better for us in the end. When we sinned, when Eve sinned, there was a speed bump. that happened. It was not supposed to happen. We were supposed to live and walk and talk with God in the garden for the rest of eternity, and a speed bump happened that caused everything to shift. God says, go into all the world and preach the gospel. He wants us to enjoy the world. But we look around, it's hard for me to enjoy the world. Where we're at, it's hard for me to enjoy anything. I got a baby on the way, and I'm like, Lord, what am I doing to this poor child? What do I teach it? Because the world doesn't make sense anymore. When I was a kid, the world at least made sense. You had Democrats and Republicans. You could make one choice or the other. You know, there was sense. You could go to church, you didn't have to. But now it's just nothing makes sense. And it goes back to that idea that in the end, men will be lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of themselves, rather than lovers of God. And the fact of the matter is, the sad thing is that lovers of pleasure is because they don't realize that there's more to this life than what we experience here. It's about what we're doing for the end result. The end result is what matters, because this world is a blip. And once we're done, we're on the other side where we go back to where God created what he wanted at the beginning, which is relationship. God wanted relationship so much that in Hebrews 10, I mean, I had a clip of the Passion. We're going to show that in a second. But I just think about Jesus in the garden. He just got done having dinner with his disciples, knowing what he had to do, knowing he's about to die. He goes to the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's sitting there praying. The other 12 fall asleep. They have no clue what's going on. But Jesus is praying, and he's pouring out his soul. And he says, God, bleeding blood, God, please, if there's anything you can do, let this cup pass from me. This is an image of a man who was fully God, but he was fully man. Even Jesus, knowing everything he knew, still wanted to hold on to this world, because this world, guys, the last 2 years has been nuts, right, babe? I've dealt with reality, and I've dealt with not wanting to be here. I've dealt with the brokenness of the world, the weight. I don't know if any of you have experienced it. I have. Looking around and just going, I don't want to be here. I do not like the world the way it is. But God confronted me. He said, Jordan, you're here. And it's like, Lord, why didn't you, I've had friends who've died. An ex-girlfriend, her husband, they died in a fire. I'm like, Lord, why them? I don't want to be here. Why didn't you take me and leave them? At least they would have had a point. But God kept saying, Jordan, you're here for a purpose. And this world, regardless of the brokenness, if we think this is the first time in history that the world has looked like terrible, you're wrong. Because if we fast forward, 5 chapters later, God destroys the whole world with a flood. Because no one was good. Okay? This isn't the end of the world. And that's the point of what God's saying is like, guys, we're the image of God. People need to see the image of God. And we're here. So Jesus is bleeding, saying, Lord, I don't want to leave. And he says, not my will, but yours be done. In spite of it all, knowing. And the beauty of it is Hebrews 12, verse 2, he says, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. And I love that, because here's a statement that's huge. Paul makes a statement that, such a small statement, but it's huge. He says, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. Simple to us, right? Fast forward 2,000 years. We're still here. And the joy that was set before him has not even happened yet. Jesus looked into the future, saw everything that was going to happen, saw people wanting to be goats and dogs and babies and all sorts of stuff. He said, it's worth it. This is worth it for the joy that is set before me, which I get to be reunited with the image of God. That's what he did. That's what he died. That's why, roll the clip. That's why he did this. Now, one thing that Genesis I didn't really point out is the idea of dominion. And I felt like as I was watching that, I needed to say this. What dominion is, God is so crazy. Dominion is the ability to choose. Dominion is the ability for you to be like God. You cannot be like God. You can't be in the image of God. He could not make you a duplicate of himself, which is what the image of God is. He duplicated himself within himself and created joy. He duplicated himself within himself, created Jamie and Jesse. He took a part of himself and compartmentalized himself and said, this is Jordan. And part of that was, you've heard many people ask this question, why would a good God ever allow ... I've had people ask that question. Now my answer is this. Because he's a good God. The reason a good God will allow ... is because he's a good God. And what that means is this. Above all else, God honors your choice. Is there anything that God cannot do? Absolutely. I would have answered wrong 20 years ago, 5 years ago. There's absolutely something God cannot do because he made a choice to not do it. And what that choice was, he said, I vow within myself, I make a commitment with myself that I will never negate their freedom or their choice. So a good God allows bad things to happen because he wants you to be like him, which is to be able to be free to make a choice. That is the riskiest, craziest, nuttiest thing I've ever heard in my life. That's like me watching my kid, telling him don't touch the iron, and then watching him, and I could stop him at any time, but I let him touch it. He's a good God. And he wants you to be free. Every person that we saw in those videos is free to make a choice. Every person on those videos has been free to listen to the wrong voice, just like Eve listened to the wrong voice. We have to be the voice that speaks truth in love, or at least demonstrates truth in love by living a life worthy of the image of God. God endured the cross. He endured all that pain. He bled his blood and died so that we could be free to live as goats. or as dogs or as babies or as whatever we want to believe we are. Because he knew that for the joy that was set before him, one day he will be reunited with us, complete, whole, with the understanding of every broken thing that we do and every broken thing and what it causes to us. When Satan sees you acting like a goat, acting like a dog, acting like a whatever, he sees the image of God in the spirit, the image of God corrupting itself. When we sin, we are showing the image of God corrupting itself in the spiritual realm, and Satan delights in it. That understanding, that belief has changed. It hasn't completely eradicated my behavior, but it has changed everything that I do. Because when I come into times when I am cognizant of my behavior, I go, do I want to corrupt the image of God? Do I want to give Satan delight by perverting the image of God? And that has challenged my life. And it's made me be able to see these people in very different eyes, because they're hurting and they need God. We all need God. The beauty of it is we have a God who loves us, wants us to have free choice. He made us in the image of God, and now it's our job, because of the cross, to represent that image to every person we come in contact with and to make a difference in their life. So, I know I showed you some disturbing things tonight, but I felt like it was necessary for you to really see where we're at as a nation, and as not just a nation, but as a world. Because this is worldwide, guys. These were clips from the BBC. They were clips from Oregon and all over the place. So, I'm sorry if I corrupted you, but the world's corrupt. And we need to understand that people need God, and they need to know who the image is. We've forgotten God as a nation. We've forgotten God as the world. And so we've got to shine brighter. So, thank you.